Welcome to Project PhDcast. I'm your host, podcast researcher, and PhD student, Alison Innes. Thank you so much for joining me for my regular musings about my research and my PhD experience. When I was thinking about what to talk about for this episode, I realized I was spoiled for choice. Even though it feels like October has just flown by way too quickly, a lot has been going on both in my PhD research and my day job at the university. So I was debating whether I share my experience doing Freedom of Information access requests as part of my research, or maybe talking about the research ethics approval process, or even sharing some of the podcast initiatives I'm doing for my work that are already allowing me to connect my research with my day job. However, the highlight of this past week has, surprisingly for me, been writing. Yes, writing. That fickle muse that can at times be so frustrating and aloof, or so immediate and alive. This past week, she has been blessing me with wonderful words. Okay, maybe not wonderful yet, but at least a first draft that might become wonderful. I've been reading, researching, listening, and thinking about my propaganda research project since February when it first appeared in the news. But aside from some speaking notes for a research in progress presentation that I did and some scribbled fragments for myself, I haven't actually written anything substantial on it. When I met my supervisor earlier in October, he encouraged me to start writing. And I'll be honest, I was a bit hesitant. I didn't feel like I knew enough, and I didn't see yet how my ideas were going to fit together. But moral of the story is trust your supervisor. It's been 10 years since I finished my MA, and I last did academic writing. I had forgotten the most important bit of writing, that the act of writing itself is part of the research and thinking process. That it is not until I start putting things down on paper or a screen that my ideas and research will begin to reveal themselves and grow together into something cohesive. What unexpectedly broke this writing drought for me was speaking with students about podcasting and literary journalism. One of the English professors had asked me to speak to his creative nonfiction writing class about creating podcasts for their final projects. And building podcasting capacity at the university in our faculty is one of the initiatives that I've undertaken as part of my job. So I'm always super excited to talk to students and researchers about podcasting whenever I get a chance. This request, though, was particularly timely, as I had just finished reading the chapter on literary journalism and podcasting in Siobhan McHugh's book, The Power of Podcasting. Link in the show notes. I had taken an undergraduate class in literary journalism with the same professor last year, and I was bursting with ideas and questions I wanted to talk about after reading McHugh's chapter. And while finally listening to S-Town, the podcast McHugh discusses in her chapter, and reading some of the media coverage of the podcast when it came out, I was really struck by how much the questions I'm asking about police podcasting are also asked, or should be asked, around true crime podcasts. Writing up my notes for that presentation burst the dam, so to speak, and the words came flooding out. I've been telling everyone how wonderful it feels to be writing academically again. It's like using a muscle that hasn't been stretched for a long time, or getting back on a bicycle after many years. Can I still do it? Will I enjoy it? Yes and yes. I've written some 3,000 words this week, many in the quiet, late hours of night when my brain seems to be at its most creative. It's just a start, I know, but it's enough of a start to reassure me that the rest of the words will come. I know that writing will not always flow easily, and it won't always be a joy, and not everything I write will be good or make sense. Writing, and especially the editing and rewriting process, is hard work. But when everything aligns and the muse smiles, it truly feels magical. So I'm using this episode today to bottle up that wonderful feeling of writing magic. I hope it will encourage both you and future Alison to keep going when writing is hard work, to find that crack in the dam and start working from there until the dam bursts and the words flow. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I would love to hear about your thoughts. and ideas and questions. So feel free to connect with me via email or social media. Links are in the show notes. And as the restful, dark days of the year begin to close in on us, I wish you a time of coziness, warmth, and creativity, and some really good writing time.